Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Joel, and this is Avenue Code's Extraordinary Women in Technology. Here you find inspiring conversations with top executives and technology leaders. If you're listening to us from a podcast platform, please be sure to follow us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Today, I am so thrilled to introduce Tiffany Welch. She is executive and leadership coach. I am so excited to announce our partnership. Tiffany has so kindly agreed to donate her expertise to the EWIC community as our leadership and executive coach expert. And what she's going to do is she's doing this podcast with us today. She's also going to be joining us in person for some of our future sessions, as well as giving some insight to our Diamond members as well. First, thank you, Tiffany, for your generous contribution to the sisterhood. And welcome.
Carrie, I am just so thrilled to be partnering with Extraordinary Women in Tech. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, why don't we start by, do you mind introducing a little bit of your background to our listeners?
So as Carrie said, I am an executive and leadership coach, and I am really passionate about helping people stretch, grow, and seek out the possibilities in work and life, and ultimately to do so with as much ease and fulfillment as possible. I have spent the majority of my career in sales and sales leadership, in the entrepreneurial space and fintech, and more recently in technology sales with SAP and the London Stock Exchange Group. And I am just so excited to be partnering with your organization and with the community to help women, the sisterhood, achieve their greatest potential, performance, and fulfillment in all that they do at work and in life.
Well, that's awesome. Now, when you and I first thought about, having this conversation as a podcast, one of the things that we talked about were what were some of the top questions that the sisterhood we often hear when we do events, when we have leadership dialogue and discussion. I think the first one is literally always the first question we get, which is, at some point, somebody asks, how can I better manage work-life balance? And I know this is something that you've thought a lot about. And I think you have some interesting ideas and thoughts to share. I know for myself, it's something that's always been a bit of a challenge. I'm a working mom. And especially when the kids were younger, when I was at work, I always felt guilty about not being at home. And when I was at home, I felt guilty about not working enough. So I think it's a tough one for everybody. What kind of advice do you have for women?
It's totally understandable that this is a top topic. And as you shared, it's tough to create that balance between work life and home life. And there are a lot of feelings that come up in that. And it makes sense because there are a lot of responsibilities and a lot of priorities and a lot of things that we want to get done. I find that a good way to start to explore this goal of work-life balance are a couple of really basic questions. What is it that I'm doing with my time? Sometimes a lack of awareness around where you spend your time can lead to a feeling of like loss of control and stress because we feel we're at the mercy of time. It runs us. And so understanding where we spend our time and where we want to spend our time is the first step of just awareness. The second is, how am I doing what I do? What is the mindset? The way we approach what we do can have a real impact on the experience and our feeling of balance. So if what we're doing is draining us emotionally, physically, mentally, we're stressed, we're dragging the anchor around, we're burned out, of course, there's no gas in the tank for the other things that we want to be doing. So how does our mindset impact how we feel about the balance in our life?
And I love the analogy to an anchor. I know for myself, when I'm inspired, I feel like I'm flying. And sometimes when I'm struggling a bit, I do feel that weight of that anchor and you kind of feel it pulling down on you. I'm curious, do you have some I don't know, tricks of the trade to get rid of that anchor, to kind of help us not feel so weighted down?
Absolutely. And really, when we're able to untether from that anchor, there's clarity, there's focus, and there's a little bit more ease. So it makes perfect sense that we want to get there more often. So the first step, as I touched on, is awareness. And there's a really basic exercise, but I think it can be really effective. And that is around keeping a time log. So bear with me, because I know it sounds, somewhat basic, but the insights that come out of it, I think can be really helpful. So if you're trying to achieve balance, let's say at work, you want more time for strategic thinking, or you want prospecting time, map out the categories across, all your activities in the day. If it's something you want to spend more quality time with your kids, you want to be working out, pull the lens back, map out the categories, more broadly in your day. And then in the first column, detail out, like map out where you think you spend your time. In the second column, map out where you'd like to spend your time. And then let it roll for a few days, get in there, put, half an hour here, 20 minutes, 2 hours here, whatever you're doing across your activities. Excel's pretty good for this. So you can actually figure out what you did with 24 hours in the first place, because sometimes it's hard to figure out all got done in 24 hours. And then take a step back and look. And some insights come up. First is that you didn't have awareness around where you're spending your time and you're kind of surprised. And that's absolutely understandable because we don't have a lot of time to sit around thinking about where we spend our time, but it can be really helpful to do that. And you can see and make some conscious changes. The second is, where you spend your time, but it isn't where you want to. And it may be about just really consciously reallocating where you spend time, maybe a little less time on social media, or if you're spending a lot of time driving the kids, consider some carpool perhaps, or other things. But when you can see that compare and contrast around where you're spending your time and where you want, it kind of makes it clear. The third is a little more complicated, and that is you're spending your time exactly where you want to be spending it, but it doesn't feel like balance.
And you and I had this conversation a few weeks ago, and it was actually something you and I talked about, which is like, where do you spend your time? And I think one of the things, I took your advice and I did my little charting exercise. And the thing that I realized about it was, by almost relabeling some of those times, it made me realize what I am spending my time on. So driving the kids was a good example. When I'm driving just one kid, it's also one-on-one time where I get to be, it's quiet, it's confined. I can tell, my son to put down his phone and have a conversation with mom. But I think, instead of making it feel like it was a negative, I realized it was an opportunity. So I think that there's really value in that process of, is it what you expected, defining it, and then taking some time to analyze it. What does it mean for me? What does it mean for my family, for my work, for my colleagues, etc.
You, Carrie, for shifting the lens on, I have to drive my kid to, I get to have some quality time. And that tees up this next approach that I think is really helpful. And you and I had talked about this. So thanks for the lead in here. And that is that when we think about how we do what we do, think about that to-do list. Think about all those categories, all those activities. Think about some that have a lot of energy around them. I have to fill the funnel. I should be more present. I need to work out. And when you think of the feelings that come up with that, oftentimes it's dread, it's guilt, it's doubt, it's self-judgment, it's draining, or it actually holds us back from doing some of those activities that are important to us, but it gets in our way. So one technique that can help kind of shift a mindset is, instead of saying, I have to, I should, I must, rewrite that and start the statement with, I choose. So I choose to fill the funnel. I choose to be present. Mm-hmm. I choose to work out. And for many, there's an instant feeling of like lightness, of relief, often comes because we're taking an empowered stance just by I choose. Then we can take it a step further. I choose because. So what's in it for you if you choose to do this? What is the benefit? So I choose to fill the funnel because I will get leads and those can generate into sales. Okay. Sounds pretty good. And I'm starting to see the opportunity and the possibilities with a bit more of this lightness, instead of I have to fill the funnel, but nobody's going to respond to my emails, right? So I choose, and I'm leaning into what's in it for me. So that helps us tap into our buy-in and motivation to actually get doing something. So it puts some energy behind it. And then take it a step further. I choose to because, and that's important to me. So I choose to fill a funnel because I can generate leads and get some sales. And that's important to me because it aligns to my values of connecting with customers and helping to solve their problems. So now we've connected with our values, with our purpose, and we're able to tap into some of that inspiration and really get energized behind what we do. And when we can bring that approach to what we do, we're able to be in alignment with what's important to us. We're a conscious choice, and we're able to feel more balance, less dread, guilt that you talked about at the beginning of where you should be, and feeling at choice. And so instead of being at the mercy of time, we're actually putting time to work for us in a sense, and are in a position of more empowerment and control, and that energy that really, really tees us up for having that ease and that clarity around sort of what we're doing. And I think you even mentioned inspiration off the top. So those are a couple of ways to look at how you get to balance.
And I love that because, I think for a lot of us, we're not one dimensional, right? There's we have a lot of different dimensions. Usually highly successful people have a lot of different things they're trying to achieve all at the same time. So that balance is important. And I think it really leads me to the second topic that always comes up. And I think as women, we don't spend enough time thinking about strategies around this one. We kind of worry about it. And that is, how do I get to the next level in my career? I think it's a tough one. A lot of women, rightly so, have ambitions in the corporate world. I think often people feel like they've plateaued and want to move forward. And sometimes they just don't know what it is that I can do to move me to the next level. I know that a big part of your practice is helping women kind of unlock their potential and get them there. So I know this is a 30-minute podcast, so you're not going to give away all your secrets, but maybe you could share with us a few tactics and recommendations that you have for women in that case.
This is a big one, and you can come at it from so many different ways. It's important, and so I'll share an approach that I think can be effective, and see how that resonates with you, Carrie, and with the audience. But I like to approach this from a perspective of human being and human doing. So when we think about that, when we think about next level, we often think about what it is we need to do, and we're laser focused on outcomes. And it's really important, as we've just been discussing, around how is it that you show up? What is the mindset you bring to what you do? And that's the being side of things. And it's really about aligning who you are. So your purpose, your passions, your values, with what you do, so your goals and your actions, and how you do it. What's the mindset? What are the thoughts and the feelings that you cultivate when you do that? And when you get those in alignment, you can tap into that motivation, that buy-in that we talked about, and alignment and connection to what's important to you, and you get that inspiration. So that's kind of the winning recipe for sustained success. And you've got that mindset of how you show up and how you keep yourself aligned and energized in what you do. So with that, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so I'm so sorry. I love that idea of like sustained success. Like, your being is something that you always are. And so I tie those two things together, and like, how do I keep it going a little bit? Right. Because sometimes we have a good day, we have a good night's sleep, we're in the right mindset, we show up really well, but it's about consistency, right? Like, it's about being, always being. And I just love your thoughts on that sustained, and sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just excited.
Well, thank you. Like, sustaining it really is a combination of the being and the doing, not just being laser focused on what you got to get done and the outcomes you're striving for, but bringing that mindset of how you go about doing it. And that's great, in conceptual terms. And I think we can get our head around that. And we just talked about, conscious choice. I choose because, and really reframing and shifting a mindset to more energized, open, possibility seeking one. But when we think about the next level in the career, it's what does that next level mean? So you're at sustained success, but you want that next level of success. Mm-hmm. And I think, that's really important to think about here as we address this question. And many times we approach it from a performance orientation. So it's that outcome, becoming a VP and EVP, of getting to winner's circle, of being, getting top scores in your 360 or in your performance review. It's very outcome driven. And while that can be motivating in the short term, in the long term, and as challenges come up, that mindset can lead to self-judgment, some doubts, some fears, some worries, some guilt, because looking at the outcome, if you don't win, you fail. And what could be more stressful than that? So thinking that you could fail, you are constantly working harder, longer hours, grinding it out. You're dragging that anchor around. The anchor is getting bigger. And as a result, you often have lesser performance, and you get burned out. So that, unfortunately, is kind of counterintuitive of trying harder, but sometimes the results are lesser when you just focus on the outcome.
And I mean, when we talk about outcomes, like, it's interesting, right? Because we live in a society which is really kind of judgy. You anywhere you walk, it's and we've talked about this before, right? As a woman, how do you look? What's your purse? What's your car? What jewelry are you having? Every part of what we wear is a choice that is often analyzed by those around us. And similarly, so are our decisions about the jobs we take, judgment about the jobs we lose, about what it means for our capability. And I know being, having had jobs where I did lose and I had to kind of rebuild myself and look at what I wanted to do. I mean, those are hard times there. And it's why the sisterhood is so important. It's times when you do need to reach out. You need to talk to women who have gone through it, who are going through it, are, part of your network. And it's why we're so passionate it's when you're high, when you're plateaued, when you're low, right? The sisterhood comes in to help you through it, because these aren't easy things. No one does it perfectly. I think every day it's choices and work to make that happiness, which is in the end the goal, right?
Yes. And look, our networks are critical, and our support systems and the resources around us to help us think through what matters to us and what's important to us. And so when we're looking to that next level, when we're focused on that outcome or even what other people think of us, our aim is to validate our competency, our skills, and sometimes we're even emotionally attached to that outcome in a way that it validates our identity, our value, our self-worth. And it can lead us down a slippery slope. So an alternative approach is to focus on the process rather than the outcome, on the improvement rather than the results, on the growth and the learning rather than the winning. And this is called a mastery orientation. And I think some people might also know it as like a growth mindset.
Right.
But when we focus on the process, on the improvement, on the learning, we're able to cultivate a mindset that's more possibility focused, creative, seeing what's ahead of us, and being able to, to tap into that. And a process of mastery isn't so much about, the outcomes. It's around planning and commitment and evaluation, soliciting feedback, modifying. It's that whole process of getting there wherever there is. And so we set goals that are more competency and learning based rather than outcome based, because every outcome leads to learning and every learning leads to important outcomes. So getting a little philosophical here, but it's a shift in where you put your focus and your energy is into mastery rather than the actual outcome.
And that, I remember a few years ago when a lot of organizations were doing seminars and such on psychological safety and creating these psychologically safe environments. And one of the things that they taught that always really stuck with me, which is the same sort of thing, is ask questions. And instead of, kind of throwing out a judgment or a statement, step back and ask questions. And it just, by the nature of changing that very subtle way you approach it, not outcome, but growth. Don't state your position, ask what their position is. It's these very subtle changes that make an incredible difference in the interaction, in the tone, in the energy in the room with each other, et cetera. So, I mean, they're small changes, but I love this one. And I just love the mastery. Like, I just think it's a cool way to describe it. Growth mindset's good too, but I don't know. I'm, I love my words, and mastery is definitely the word that I like. So no, that's amazing. And,
I did want to elaborate maybe on something you said. I do think it's critical around what you said around asking questions and not judging, and the importance of doing that to engage with others. It's also really important to do that with our self-talk. And we aren't as generous with ourselves as we are with others. And that self-judgment can come in pretty heavily. So to ask yourself the questions and the type of questions that I've been posing here, what do I choose? Why? What's important to me? And to step away from that doubt and fear and try to move that, to the side is really important too. So I just thought I'd point that out and build on what you were saying there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, I don't want to end our conversation with you without bringing up inspiration, because I know that for myself, being inspired and having that energy, it's joyful. It's something that's important to me, but it's also a little bit fleeting sometimes. I mean, there's been times, and the anchor really, really talked to me. It's like you feel that anchor, and it's almost like it's the opposite. Inspiration is the opposite. And I think a lot of our sessions, women ask, "How do I maintain my inspiration? How do I find inspiration that's lost? How do I?" And it feels a bit elusive. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on inspiration in general and how, as women, we can cultivate it and maintain it.
I hear you. I mean, when inspiration is flowing, man, the ease, the clarity, the connection, that flow, that creativity, that atta girl feeling, right? Yeah, like way to go. You're right in the zone. It feels so good. And when it disappears, heartbreak. It is deflating. And I don't know about you, but I beat myself up for not having it, for not being able to just get it back. And so the real question is like, why does it go, or does it go? Where does it go? How does it go? How do we get it back? How do we sustain it? So I like to think of inspiration as the love child of mindset and engagement, of how we show up. We've talked about mindset, of that conscious choice, clearing the things that hold us back, energizing and elevating how we show up in what we do. And that allows us to be a little bit more empowered to see those possibilities. Remember that lightness of I choose. When we talk about engagement, that's that excitement, that willingness, that buy-in. So we talked about what's in it for me, right? I choose because it's that connection with what's important to you. And you bring all those things together, you're in that zone and it feels great. So where does it go? The key question. Enter stress.
Yeah.
Enter stress. Stress abounds, right? It's, as you said, change of job, promotion. Positive things can be stressful. Change of manager, big presentation coming up, conflict at home, conflict with a coworker, change, on and on and on and on. We all have stress. But here's the thing, we all react to stress differently. So it's not so much about the stressor, but how we react to the stressor that impacts our level of stress or our level of engagement, and how we're able to get in that pocket, in that zone. I'm all about the tips and tricks. So there are 6 key influencers that you can check in on. I like to think of them as like gauges and levers, and how you can really do a self-assessment and see what maybe isn't in alignment. Sure, you're consciously choosing, but you've got this sort of anxiety and tension that's clouding over the inspiration. So what is it? It's influencers are spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, social, environmental. And when you get these aligned, you've got that engagement, that energy, that buy-in, and as a result, that inspiration, and all of that actually leads to even greater performance. When you're inspired, right? You can see that big picture. You see that longer term. You got that 360 view of things. So the most important one is spiritual, right? What you are doing is aligned with your values and your purpose and what's important to you. So if you're feeling out of whack, ask yourself, how do I want my sense of purpose to show up in what I'm doing and support me?
And you know what, like I love about this, Tiffany, is in every one of these 3 topics, you've brought back almost the same comment. Ask yourself. It's stop, take some time for yourself, ask yourself, contemplate. Because I think as women, and I hear this often, we do a lot for everybody else, but it's almost like we feel it's selfish or something if we take a moment to sort of consider it. And you use the words, what's in it for me? That's a positive. What can I get out of it? It's okay to talk about me, to be focused on I. It's not going to make you a selfish monster. It's going to make you strong, in focus, inspired. These are all positives that I think in some ways language and attitude has twisted a little bit, and women are afraid to do that. So I really love the ask yourself, because we're intelligent women, and I think we know the answer. We're just kind of afraid to kind of bring it up.
That's the premise of coaching, is that the answer lies within each of us. And so as a coach, I ask questions. I don't propose a solution. My answer isn't necessarily the best answer for you. So it's spot on, Carrie, is that the answer really does lie within us, but sometimes it's just not so easy to get there. So asking ourselves questions, using some of these kind of tips and tricks just to self-coach, is a great way to try and get there. There are a whole bunch of influencers, as I mentioned, and different questions you can ask yourself in each of those. Mental, how do I choose to be more mentally stimulated in my job? Maybe it's about asking if your manager will support you in taking a course or deepening skills or augmenting your skills to be a leader. Physical, environmental, I think we know where we can go with that. Social, how much and what type of social interaction best supports you in achieving your goals, and to be conscious about that. So when we think of all of this, when we understand what's influencing us, we come at it with conscious choice. We've got that mindset and engagement love baby starting to happen. So I thought I'd just go through a quick checklist if that works for you. Your inspiration is gone. Wherefore art thou? Okay, what am I feeling and what am I thinking? What's going on? Let me do an audit of my influencers. Maybe I'm a little out of whack. All right, go through all 6 of them, checks the gauge and kind of go, oh yeah, stress is coming in here. I'm feeling, reactive in this environment or situation. My emotional reactions are high. Okay, let's just get some awareness going. Then enter conscious choice. What do I want? What levers do I want to tweak? And be aware of any of those blocks and feelings that might be getting in the way. The shoulds, I have to reframe, I choose. And then from there, what's in it for me? And it isn't just selfishly, it could be the joy of doing something for someone else, but what is your motivation? If you don't have motivation, to support your choices, then how do you stay committed and engaged to them? And so you bring all that together, and that's when you're in that flow, that ease, that creativity. And I mean, what could be more inspiring than being empowered at choice, feeling aligned and clear and focused?
When we are all those things, we're our best. And when we're at our best together, and that's what, the sisterhood is about. It's why, we spend a lot of time at Avenue Code promoting extraordinary women in technology, because a lot of us are women in leadership. We know how hard it is. And we watch our women around us, I think, struggle with some of these. And it's really, our give back really means a lot to us, because we want to be there giving women some extra tools, tricks, support, whatever they need. I can't thank you enough for donating your time and expertise. I know for myself, in our conversations, especially leading up to this, I felt more inspired. I feel more connected. I feel more like taking on the world, even more so than I usually do. Not like I need a lot more energy, because usually I'm already bouncing off the walls, but So, I'm really excited. I know this is the first of many more. If people want to find out about you, our website has your bio, ways to contact you. We are also going to be doing some other events in series, which we'll post online. Thank you again. Any last words you want to share with our listeners today?
I'd like to give one more little bonus thought to that last topic. And I finished with what could be better than that. And there's one more thing. And that is adding to inspiration, intuition. And that is that powerful sense of knowing. And it's not always easy to hear your intuition, the chatter in the head, the shoulds, I have tos. It's really hard to hear your intuition. But you'll know it's your intuition because your intuition does not judge and it is not attached to any outcome. So if you can clear the chatter, often with breath work, meditation, getting out in nature, sit and close your eyes and take a deep breath and ask yourself, look in the back of your eyes, look into that darkness and ask yourself, what do I see? And it's amazing what a quiet, still mind can know that we don't think it can know. And when you add that knowing to your mindset that's consciously choosing, and to your energetic engagement, that's how you sustain your inspiration, tapping into that knowing. So I'll pause there at risk of running over time, but I thought it's certainly been one for me as I've gone through moments in life that has really helped me stay the course, trust the process, and to embrace the unknown out there as possibilities rather than as things that are pretty scary. So, Carrie, I just want to say thank you so much. This has just been so energizing and so fun and meaningful. And I am really looking forward to our continued partnership and collaborating with you and the EWIT community on a bunch of these topics going forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time. And thank you, listeners, for listening. And we look forward to you joining us on our next podcast. Thank you again.